What is going on, everyone? Darkside Phil here with another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series. My air conditioner is a little bit on the louder side because it's currently in the middle of a hurricane and it's hot as balls, so it is pumping. I'm trying to keep this place cold just in case the power goes out, okay? So anyway, today we're going to talk about a game that took me kind of by surprise. And I think this year, 2011, is really officially can be called the year of the PC game sequel. Meaning this year there were a lot of games that originally had been made exclusively for PC quite a while ago, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, new versions of these games, you know, the newer installments, came out in 2011. And it all started with Duke Nukem Forever, continued with Alice Madness Returns, and now we have the third major release that it seems to be following that vein, Deus Ex Human Revolution. Now, Deus Ex, I did play a little bit of the original Deus Ex back in the day when it was first released. My friend actually owned it for his PC, and I knew, you know, it's a game where it's a first-person game, but it's not necessarily a first-person shooter per se. It's not a kind of game where you're going to run and gun like Call of Duty or anything like that. The game is highly involved with role-playing, and depending on what powers you purchase in the game as you complete quests, the game can actually be played completely differently. So for example, if you like, during the course of this game, and if you spend all of your experience points, in this game they call them praxis points, every time you gain a level, if you put them into combat abilities, well, then you can kind of play this game a little bit more like a run and gun, where you can aim way more, you know, there's no recoil on your weapon, you can use damage upgrades to upgrade your offensive weapons, and you can just kill everything, you know, that comes in your way. And if that's the case, if that's how you want to play the game, what you'll have to do is highly rely on buying ammo, looting from all the people who you kill so that you get their money and their ammo off of their weapons. Now, on the flip side, you can choose to play this game as completely at like a sneaking gameplay, such as Metal Gear, or another comparison would be Crysis, where you have the cloaking system, and that system is present in Deus Ex Human Revolution. So, really, dependent upon how you want to play the game, it could be a completely different experience. And that is how the original Deus Ex games played, and I was wondering, you know, when I got this one, if they were going to follow suit, or if they were going to maybe change it up and they were going to modernize the game, because as you know, a lot of these games from back in the day had kind of a difficult learning curve, a lot of a higher degree of difficulty, and a lot of unforgiving parts. And I was like, gee, I wonder if they're going to dumb down Deus Ex for this generation of games. Well, I'm pleased to say they did not. It is pretty much very similar to the original two Deus Ex games, obviously with some modernization improvements, but it stays true to that formula, where you can beat the game however you want, but it is actually kind of hard, meaning you don't have unlimited fucking health like you do in those games, I'm going to say again, like Halo or Call of Duty, where you take 7,000 bullet shots and you're still running straight through and you melee the guy in the face. That's not going to happen in Deus Ex Human Revolution. In this game, you can only take a couple bullets. In some cases, it's instant death if you get hit, and it's very realistic in that manner. Even if you get all the defensive upgrades in the game, which I did during my playthrough, you still can't take a lot of shots. And so it really makes you try to figure out how to be good at the game rather than just kind of bumbling through it. You know, some person who's not good at this style of game is not going to do very well unless they put a lot of time into it. And so I really like that aspect of the game. I like the challenge of the game. But that being said, I don't feel that this game was too difficult, or that there were any parts, honestly, in the game that felt too difficult to me. And it's funny because, you know, a lot of people say, oh, Phil's just an average gamer and, you know, he likes those easier games like Call of Duty. That's actually not the case. I like a game that gives me a little bit more challenge when it comes to the quality of the game. Now, it might not lend itself as well to doing a playthrough, and that is the case. I think that I tried to do as much as I could with this game, but I think that the game kind of spoke for itself in a lot of places. And so I didn't really have to do a lot of commentary or a lot of jokes or such. I kind of let the game speak for itself as I was playing it most of the time. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about the story of the game so you know what to expect. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the things that I really liked about the game and the things that I didn't like about the game that much, okay? So first of all, the story of the game, it's like, I think it's set in like 2031 or 2035, something like that. It's supposed to be like 25 years in the future, and this new technology has broken through where people can now use augmentations to their bodies that are basically cybernetics. So, you know, you can have a cyborg arm, you can have cyborg eyes, and they give you special abilities. And the problem was up to this point, they couldn't find a way for these to stick, meaning to stay with the person and not have the person be addicted to some kind of drugs or something to treat the effects of your body trying to reject these cybernetics. Well, this story of this game begins when the actual solution for that has been found. And what ends up happening is you are the security chief of a research facility called Seraph Industries, and there's a break-in at this research facility. 3 cybernetic soldiers have broken in, end up killing everyone in the facility and stealing stuff, and you don't know what's going on. Who are they? Why did they do this? There's a lot of plot twists in the game. At some point you think that it might be a human group that is like their anti-augmentation. They think that humans should stay human, shouldn't have cybernetics. Sometimes you may think it's criminals, different organizations from China, from other places, and really it's a big mystery during most of the game. You don't really know what's going on, and you don't know who's behind this attack on the facility. And I'm not going to reveal too much more about the plot because it is a really interesting plot, and you should experience it for yourself if you haven't watched my playthrough already. But it's exceptional. The story in this game is exceptional, I have to say. What did I like about the game? Well, there's certain things about this game that are reminiscent of other games that I like. For example, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. In fact, a lot of people have drawn very strong comparisons between this game and those games, because just like in this game and Fallout, you can choose to, if you want to be completely action-oriented and level up your guns and your gun abilities and shoot things, or you can level up your sneak abilities and be like a sneaky thief, or you can choose to use gadgets to become invisible, similar to how you can do in this game. So there are a lot of comparisons, and I did compare this game a lot to Fallout 3. I said, gee, this game kind of plays like Fallout 3 if the nuclear apocalypse never happened in the Fallout universe. Where would the technology have been? What would have happened to the world? And that's kind of where this game seems to pick up. So it's more of like a super futuristic Fallout kind of universe, and I really like that. Again, going in line with things that it's similar to, the dialogue trees in this game are very similar to Fallout or to Mass Effect, where depending on what you say, it can actually change the plot of the game. It can change different things. You can earn achievements by convincing people to do things one way or the other way, depending on what you say to them. And there's actually, unlike Fallout, there is an ability that you can purchase with your experience points that actually gives you information about the person you're talking to. You can see their level of convincing. It's like a bar, a gauge that shows you if it's working or if they're getting angry at you if you're not convincing them. And it's really cool. I think it was something unique that I really enjoyed, was this ability to unlock, to use these, figure out what the proper speech patterns were to get people to do what you wanted them to do. Also, just like, again, I keep saying Fallout, but it really is very similar to Fallout, you can just beat the game by itself, doing just the main missions, or you can actually do side missions. And I thought some of the side missions were very interesting content, had a totally supporting cast of characters that you wouldn't have ever touched upon if you had never done these side missions, ended up being some of the most enjoyable things that I did in this game. And so I recommend to anyone, if you're playing this game, do the side missions, because not only will you get a lot of fun out of it and a lot more of the story, but it actually gives you a lot more money and a lot more experience points, and you can unlock a lot more of the augmentations of your body and basically complete a lot more of the game. The length of the game. The game is very, very long. I've been playing this game for 8 hours straight for 3 days, and then today I probably played it for about another 3 to 4 hours, and I did as much side content as I could find. I'm sure I probably missed a side mission here or two, and at the end of the game, actually, I actually missed one side part that would have unlocked a fourth ending for me. But outside of that, I'd have to say the game is a solid 25 to 30 hours long for the average gamer. Now, if you're not as good at the game as I was, you're probably going to take you longer. And if you're better at this style of game, then it's going to be a little bit quicker. But that is a really good bang for your buck. $60 for a game that lasts that long in this day and age is a good value, especially when a lot of the games I've been playing this year never stack up to be that long. So don't worry, there's definitely enough content here to satisfy you. One of the things I think that this game was better at than Fallout was the actual world and the way it was designed, and the fact that throughout my playthrough, first of all, the world is immersed in detail. Every room that you walk into, even if there's no reason to be there, looks super realistic. And at one point you actually go to China in this game, and I swear I was walking into these vendor stores and it looked like a real store. The shelves were, every shelf was loaded with product. There was a cash register. You know, everything that you would assume would be in a store was there. And so it's so realistic. You feel like you're in this game when you play this game. And that's a really cool thing. Compare that to a game like Fallout where, yeah, Fallout had a giant universe, but at the same time, it didn't always feel as polished as it should be. This game is very polished, and that's where I think it shines. They took their sweet time developing it, and it really shows. It's a really, really sweet, pretty game. Yeah, so everything about the game is a pretty solid package that leads up to about a 30-hour adventure that you're really going to enjoy if you like this style of game. Again, this is a game you're going to spend a lot of time on. You're going to want to flesh out the story. You're going to want to be dedicated to it. If you're not looking for this kind of game, if you're looking for like an action game that's purely just action and you know, shooting things, this isn't going to be your cup of tea. Especially because a lot of the better weapons you don't get till after the second half of the game, and you really don't feel that powerful as like a gunsman. If anything, for the first half of the game, it's easier if you use things like the stun gun, the tranquilizer gun, and things to knock people out rather than kill them. It's a lot easier to get through the first half of the game. So, what didn't I like about the game? Very little, to be honest. I made a couple little nitpicky things. The game did freeze my console twice during the time that I was playing it, and it's hard to say, was that the software's fault, was that the Xbox's fault? At this point, no one really can say, but I've heard very few complaints about game bugs in this game. The only game bug that I really experienced was at the very beginning of the game when I turned on subtitles. The subtitles froze oddly for like 2 minutes, and then after I fucked around with it a little bit, it worked again. And it was really odd the way that it happened, but I was able to fix the problem, and it never crept up again during the entire course of the game. So really, for game bugs, I can't really complain. There weren't really none, and that's why I think this game is kind of a step above the Fallout games that came out over the past few years, because those games, sure, don't get me wrong, the world in those games was much larger than the world of Deus Ex, okay? Deus Ex Human Revolution primarily has like 4 or 5 areas. You've got Detroit, which is a city. You've got a city in China. There's a place in Montreal. There's a place in Shanghai. And then there's the final stage, which is somewhere out in the ocean. So really, you're talking maybe 5, 6 major locales. And, you know, for the way it does, it's, like I said, very expansive world, very detailed. And the other thing is, the loading times are exceptionally short. If you install this game on your hard drive for Xbox 360, the loading times at the most are like 25 seconds, which is exceptional. If you remember, when I was playing Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, both games had some issues with loading and exceptionally long loading times. So that, I think, is something in its favor. But the world here is a lot smaller than the world of those Fallout games. Remember, Fallout is a completely open world experience just like this is, but you can go anywhere you want at any time as long as you can survive. You can't do that in this game. In this game, when you're in a certain town, you can only do the things in that town at that time. You can't leave and go to another town or another location until you're done with the story portion of the game in that town. So that is something to be said about the game. It doesn't have as big of a world as Fallout did. But again, the loading times weren't that bad, and there weren't that many game bugs, as opposed to Fallout, which had the bigger world, had a lot of game bugs. I found very few in this game. The other negative thing, there's 2 more. The next negative thing about the game is the voice acting of the main character, Jensen, kind of sucks. It's more like a monotone voice, and he's always talking like this, and you can't ever really tell if he's excited or if he knew what the context of what he was saying was in the game, and that's why he couldn't. You put accentuation on his voice. Really, it just sounds like a guy reading a script. It doesn't sound like... You know what the best comparison is? And it's kind of funny because he kind of looks like him. Compared to Neo from The Matrix, Keanu Reeves, he's a bad actor. He sucks. The best movie he ever did was Bill and Ted, okay? But that was because in that game he was playing a dumbass. And when he did The Matrix, he was kind of good in some of the action scenes and things like that, but whenever he got the dialogue, he would always talk like this, and he would never change his expression. And that's kind of what happens with the protagonist here, Jensen, in this game. He really never has a change in his voice, and so that's really annoying. I think they could have done a lot better there. Now, maybe if they had explained it and said, well, maybe his personality is a little bit suppressed because he has all these augmentations in his body, then I would have understood it, but they never expressed that at all, and you actually do run into other people in the game who are augmented, who have great, crazy personality, so it really doesn't make sense that he's such a monotone character. I think they could have done a better job picking a better voice actor or doing the voice work and coaching the person who did the voice work to read it and be a better character, a more interesting character. And the only other complaint that I have about this game is that at some points in the game, it is kind of stupid where, let's say you're trying to do stealth, okay? So you're trying to get through this area, and all of a sudden a guard who doesn't have line of sight to you sees you. And it happens a couple times during the game. At one point I was under a staircase, and the only way the person could have seen me would have if they were on their hands and knees looking through this hole under the staircase. This guy was walking like this and saw me somehow through the staircase. And that kind of annoyed me. And it happened a couple times during the game. It wasn't too much. For the most part, the stealth is very accurate, but it did happen a couple times, and I was like, maybe that was the one part of the game that could have used a little bit more polish. But what I really thought was that they did a good job overall on those parts of the game. Now, the one last thing that I want to talk about are there are boss battles in the game, and unlike other games that come out, it didn't completely change the gameplay of the game when you go into these boss battles. Like, you know, some of these games they say, oh, it's a boss, and all of a sudden you're not doing sneaking, you're not doing shooting anymore. It's some weird pattern game that you have to figure out to kill the boss, you know? And this has happened with a lot of different games. I'm going to say it, Metal Gear Solid 4 was one of them, where at some point you're supposed to know to use a syringe and stab the boss, and it's like a pattern fight where you need to know exactly what you're doing. This game lets you use your abilities that you've unlocked to beat the bosses fairly and legitimately, and it feels like a fair game. It's very realistic. So, for example, the first boss I fought shot the shit out of me, and I died almost instantly. And I said, okay, let's wisen up. So the next time, I started using my stealth, and I became invisible. I used my cloaking device, and he couldn't see me, but then he used his head and said, well, if I can't see him, I'm just going to fucking throw grenades everywhere. So he started chucking grenades and killed me that way. So I said, okay, now I'm going to use stealth so he can't see me, and before he has a chance to chuck his grenades, I'm going to chuck my grenades, make him stunned, and then I'm going to pull out my gun and blow the shit out of him. So what did I do? I did that. I went invisible. He didn't know where I was. He was trying to figure out if he should throw a grenade or not. I stunned him with my grenade, pulled out my fucking shotgun, and went boom, 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 and just unloaded in the guy until he died. The second boss, I had unlocked so many abilities at that point in the game, and I had upgraded my weapon so much that it was even easier. She killed me once or twice quickly, and then I said, alright, I'm going to be smart. This boss cloaks just like me. So I'm going to cloak so she won't know where to attack. Then I'm going to chuck a grenade. It's going to expose where she is. And then I'm going to pull out my fucking giant rifle and blow her away. And after 2 tries, I did it. I killed her. And I said, wow, these boss battles are rewarding because unlike other boss battles in other games, you really can use the abilities that you've leveled up in the game to kill them however you want. And there are different ways to fight these bosses, just like there are multiple ways to do every stage. And every stage you can sneak in by climbing, maybe finding a vent. You could do the direct approach, go right through the front door and try to blow your way through the area. You can punch through walls. If you get that ability, you can punch through weaker walls to find hidden areas or find back ways into places. So the game has so much variety of gameplay. You could probably replay this game 2 to 3 times and find different ways to solve different things. So, outstanding. Everything about this game. The graphical design, the detail of the world, the fact that the loading is very short, the interesting story, the variety of gameplay, the length of the gameplay, and the interesting things that happen when you do the side missions. And the last point that I want to mention, it has multiple endings. You can have up to 4 different endings depending on if you do the side things that are required of you to unlock them. I personally missed out on one of them, so I only got 3 out of the 4 endings, which is kind of a shame. I would have liked to see the 4th, but that's cool. If you want to see all 4 endings, get the game yourself and find, you know, the guy that I didn't find at the end of the game. So, Deus Ex Human Revolution. I said it a couple days ago when I made an update video and I hadn't beaten the game yet, but this is honestly one of my favorite games of 2011, and as of right now, it is now the end of August. This is my pick for Game of the Year. Now, keep in mind, this is the beginning of the busy gaming season, and there's going to be a shit ton of games coming out in the next couple of weeks. And not even the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months. I mean, again, Uncharted 3, Skyrim, maybe possibly Zelda Skyward Sword, who knows. You got Battlefield 3 and the new Modern Warfare 3 coming out. You've got so many games. I know I missed like 20 right there. Oh, Batman Arkham City. But I know I'm not thinking of every single one. There's a whole bunch of games, over a dozen, that are probably going to end up being Game of the Year contenders. But this is a great start to the hardcore gaming season of this year. This is the perfect way to start it. Do not pass up this title because you think you want to save your money for another game. I'm telling you, this is a safe bet. If you like this style of game that's not a casual run-and-gun game, if you like investing time, unlocking abilities, and really using your time and experience to do things, this is your kind of game. Deus Ex Human Revolution, I give it a 9.25. Yes, it is my highest rated game of this year so far. I love it. And I think that a lot of people should run out there and get it if they were waiting or sitting on the fence about it. This is a game that is a must-buy. Probably the first must-buy of the year for me. Okay? Great job by these guys. Eidos Montreal, outstanding job. Please continue making these games. Please don't wait another 10 years to make another one. I'd like to play another one another 2 to 3 years, continuing the story. It's really good. So, okay? That's it for the Hateful Truth game review for Deus Ex. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you here next time. Thanks a lot.